'Cause, those newer people coming in are they can be intimidated and scared away very easily if they're not handled properly. So, do you have any particular, ways, or I don't know what the right word is, but, philosophies perhaps that you use, in working with new shooters?
Sure. Well, there's a ton, and we've got a whole 2-day class on it, which only scratches the surface. But I guess that's my segue to a shameless plug. Gateway Instructor Development Certification course.
Yes.
If you're interested in learning more about this, or if you go to our website, which thank you so much, Laura, you've been flashing it on the screen. If you go to citizensafety.com and look at our information on gateway instruction, you can see a lot more about it. But some of the key points are things like check your politics at the door, check religion at the door. Don't make any assumptions about your students. And this is one that's really easy to agree with theoretically, but most instructors have no idea how often they're violating that principle in practice. So one example, I will out myself for failing in that regard. And one example that sticks out where I made an assumption about a student and I shouldn't have done that is when Akil and I were teaching sight alignment, we referred to a poster on the wall that had an image of a handgun, and it was a profile image. It showed the side of the gun. And we pointed to the rear sight, pointed to the front sight, and we talked about how you have to align them. And a student of ours reluctantly raised her hand, and essentially she did not understand how that was supposed to happen in physical space. The two
Mm,
sights are attached to the slide. We can't move them. How are you going to align them? Well, she was missing the fact that even though this image is in profile, in reality, in 3D space, we're going to be standing behind the gun.
mhm,
And so, what we're talking about is your vantage point from standing behind the gun, not
mhm.
your vantage point from looking at the side of the gun. Now, anybody who hears me tell that story, if you're thinking, what an idiot, then you're you're making assumptions about your student. It's
Yeah.
actually not an idiotic notion at all, because it was our mistake for referencing this profile image of the firearm and taking for granted that the student knows, well, in real life, we're going to turn the thing. We shouldn't have taken that for granted. And it was
Yeah.
our fault. It wasn't the student's fault. So it's something that takes 2 seconds to avoid and three
Mhm,
seconds to fix. So it's
mhm.
not a big deal, not a whole lot of skin off anybody's back. But imagine if that student had not had the courage to ask that question.
Yeah, that's what I was
She
just thinking.
she
Good
would have
thing she
gotten
asked.
exactly, and
Yeah.
if she's the one out of however many who asked, then who knows how many didn't ask in all of
Mhm,
our years of teaching, and now they
mhm.
didn't figure this out until we got on the range with guns in hands, and so that's suboptimal, shall we say. So that's just one example of how you really do have to see your students as a blank slate, but also do that without condescending and without
Mhm,
judging them or looking down
mhm.
on them. And that can be a tricky balancing act unto itself. Those are just a few that come to mind, but there's a whole lot of strategies and techniques that we talk about in our gateway instruction class that we hope really help people make more breakthroughs with beginner students, whereas
Mhm.
these little niceties might not necessarily be as pivotal in a class with more advanced shooters.